Jacked Up Review Show. It's a Jacked Up Review Show. Jacked Up Review Show. It's the Jacked Up Review Show.
Join us as we cover many an insane movie and numerous cult TV phenomenons. Are you ready to get jacked up? Are you with us? Then listen on.
Listener discretion is advised. It's a Jacked Up Review Show. It's a Jacked Up Review Show. Jacked Up Review Show. It's a Jacked Up Review Show. It's a Jacked Up Review Show. Jacked Up Review Show.
And so, as part of the show, I'm joined by filmmaker Asif Akbar. How are you, sir?
I'm well, thank you, and thank you for having me.
By all means. And so, when I was talking with your publicist, you just have so many of these independent movies, and fortunately enough, I've actually seen some of them. I can't believe it, but
Oh, really?
I have.
Oh, okay.
And so, Akbar has an upcoming film starring Mickey Rourke and Michael J. White called The Commando.
Yes, we just wrapped production on it, so it's currently in post-production. I'm told it'll be releasing around the fall of 2021 coming up, so just under a year. And it's, a film I'm very proud of. It came out well, and under the circumstances with COVID and, all the shutdowns going on, we were very fortunate enough to be able to finish it. And, just in the last stages now with post.
Very neat. And you pretty much have a recurring theme where you just like to address a lot of just kind of military veterans or, active terrorism and how just becoming a warrior, let alone fitting back into society, just it all is just one exhausting chapter of one's life. And do you speak from a lot of just kind of experience? Like, do you have a lot of friends kind of supervising you, or is it just a theme and you just kind of are influenced by other movies?
It's a little bit of everything, because a lot of those themes are so much part of our real world, and a lot of fascinating stories and characters come from those kinds of themes, the military backgrounds and soldiers and ex-militaries, and there's so much knowledge out there to still know about with what these people go through, and to me it's always been fascinating to learn through movies about what a soldier with the PTSD would go through and how they deal with it with family members and friends and in society. And I've witnessed and experienced a lot of that myself through friends and family and close loved ones that I know have gone through that. So I feel like, especially in today's day and age in our society, it's a very realistic human subject matter that can kind of fit into any kind of action story or sci-fi story, or a lot of the stories and themes that I like to work with. So it just kind of happens to work out that way, and I enjoy telling those stories, and in the process of, as a filmmaker, learning about these different stories and people and real life events that kind of help us influence what we put out on screen.
For sure. And just as a compliment and as an admiration, I got to hand it to you for being one of few to just have an international cast. You have just various, British martial artists, Swedish, Swiss, and Bollywood stars, all who are reasonable actors and have, you know, again, the action resume to speak of. So how did that casting like come about? Was it already kind of in the script? You're like, hey, I saw this guy in a movie. What's his agent's number? Or was it a matter of is like that just kind of came afterwards?
Yeah, no, actually, it's funny. It's like that as well, but along with I mean, just me even writing certain characters in, thinking of those actors in mind, and I've been pretty fortunate so far to be able to cast who I originally envisioned, or my, you know, within my top three of actors I want to cast. And a lot of times, you know, it's, you know, actors that become friends, and I know what they can and can't do, and so I have them in mind when I'm writing. And then I'll just say, hey, you know, I'll call them up and be like, hey, I got a role for you. I just wrote for you here. I think it's perfect. And then they read it, and, you know, they come on board. But to me, even on this last one, I had a mix of all kinds of casting. There were, you know, certain actors that we had to cast because the distributor wanted them, or,
Mm-hmm.
you know, there were actors that I wrote in parts for, or when, you know, we were going through and developing the script, I envisioned them in certain roles. And then we also had a casting director that helped cast some of the roles. So it's always a mix between everything. But I'm also trying to develop a you know, kind of like a unique niche, or establish a niche where I can have a versatile cast and tell a story with, again, touching on a lot of the reality in our society today, where you have people from all walks of life, you know, in your life
Mm-hmm.
that most people know, and we see, and that's kind of like the new norm, with having different backgrounds. Um, and people from all over, you know, contributing and telling a story. And to me, I've always kind of, over the last 15, 16 years, tried to blend as much as I can in, you know, most of my stories.
Right. And in a way, this kind of just helps you not only from, you know, a filmmaking perspective, but from a marketing standard, from a also just kind of building your repertoire. It's like these guys, they're on all these productions that I do because they are reliable and I love working with them. So the system's not broken, so I'm, you know, need to fix it.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And, you know, and what we do, we create. So we can always change things up on the script. The way I work too, I'm very adaptable, from you know, script, and I'm involved in the whole process, from the script, and, you know, to all throughout pre-production, production, obviously, and then post. I'm a very hands-on director, so I'm able to adapt to the circumstances and the reality we have when we shoot the film, and then even making decisions in post on certain other circumstances. But I'm always changing the story, or editing, or trying to make it better. And, you know, to me, film is one of the most collaborative art forms, and that's what I love about it. You can work with so many people, and collaborate with so many different talents and artists to make the project the best it can be as a team. And so we're constantly doing that when we shoot. I work with the actors. I, you know, let them be artists instead of robots, and I try to make it organic, from even what's written on script. Sometimes an actor can make it more believable than what we were envisioning from the script, and it works, you know. Or certain locations have to change, or, you know, camera angles have to change because of whatever reason, and we just have to be open minded to be able to adapt, and also have an option A, B, and C for anything that could go wrong, to have a solution and just move forward. And with that, the story, and, you know, the entire project could even change. And that's something that I always have an open mind to, and it helps.
For sure. You have a very just intriguing just upbringing, just endless years of having a YouTube show where you hosted a red carpet over retrospect, acting in theater back in Ohio where you were raised, and then going back to your parents' country of Bangladesh to star in various TV shows. So I guess you can basically say you just essentially fell in love with every aspect of it. So you just gave 100% in every area.
Yeah, I think I just kind of grew into it all, because this is what I've always wanted to do ever since I can remember, as far back as, when I was like 2 years old. So I have a very clear memory of my childhood, and I kind of followed the path of wanting to make movies and tell stories, and I didn't know how that was going to happen or how you did it in the beginning. Obviously, the concept of how a film comes together was always kind of developing in my mind as I was growing older, and loving, the movies I grew up with helped me and inspired me a lot to kind of teach myself the concept of what it takes to make a movie, with having the story and the script, and then having a team and crew, and then the actors. In the beginning, when I was like 2 3 years old, I used to watch movies and think that they were little humans and people living in the boxes putting on a show for us.
Oh wow.
And that was my early concept of how a movie was made. It was like real, like miniature people just living a life in a box that we could see and tune into. But as I grew older, obviously, then I learned, okay, those people are actually real life actors living in our world somewhere in California, and they're making this up and projecting it on TV. And then it started it kept growing on who these actors were, who these directors were, how they make these movies, where they make them, and I grew into it. Then I started acting as a child actor in theater and small productions, overseas, and doing some modeling into my preteen
Oh
and
wow.
teenage years. So I've always kind of been a performer, and I kind of thought that that was my gateway into making movies, which it was. I mean, that exposed me to pretty much being the pawn in the whole show, to understand what all has to go, and come together, um, to make or produce or direct your own, content. And when I was 16, 15, 16, I would sit in some of the projects I acted in. I would sit in with the editor sometimes. And I knew the directors, and in some cases they would let me sit in and kind of learn firsthand. And then at 16, when I was a junior in high school, my high school, Valley Forge and Parma City Schools, they had vocational programs where we were able to choose career vocational programs that we wanted, to kind of pursue in college. So they were like advanced programs. For me, I chose radio and television productions, which opened the doors for me to learn the technical aspects of, all the cameras and editing and then broadcasting, and the whole deal. Pretty much my junior and senior years in high school, I was trained and taught everything that a freshman in film school learns in college. So I was kind of advanced in learning all of that, and at the same time I was making TV shows and programs for the local cable channel on Cox TV. And so I was, doing programs like doing my own show at the red carpets with my friends, and and creating a lot of content that enabled me to um, make it more of a profession. While I was still in high school, I was making other movies and projects on the sides. I directed my first TV show that went on air. It was a show called Fit for Life, about fitness, and I shot that in Bangladesh and in the states in Ohio, back when I was 16. and that was my first time really directing something that went on air, as a series. And then I had all these other programs, so all that helped me to kind of take it seriously as, okay, this is my job now. So when I went to film school at 18, I went into it knowing a lot of these things, and
Hmm.
that helped me to kind of utilize my college as a resource, as a tool. It was, for me, it was like going to work and going to a studio that gave me facilities to rent equipment and have access to editing facilities. So I was already creating content as I was going to school, and I went to Columbia College Hollywood, so they're very hands on. And so I was making projects in all the classes as well, in my directing classes, producing classes, and all the general ads. It was fun for me. So it's always been a fun and learning experience throughout. Even today, I've been, out of film school for over 10 years now, and I'm still learning on the job. And that's where I learned the most, and practical experience. And I think even like someone like a legendary director like Francis Ford Coppola still learns. Clint Eastwood still learns. Spielberg, they're always, learning new things and being innovative. I mean, that's part of our job, is to
Right.
grow with time and culture and be able to project that to an audience.
I pretty much have you tied with other filmmakers I've interviewed before, like Chaos and Tony Giglio. You pretty much used every market at your disposal, and just fired away, just giving it all your best, regardless of the budget, regardless of the format, and for the most part, you've just been. Uh, would you say your whole film school sessions, as well as your high school awards and public speaking at graduation, would you say it all kind of just was one big milkshake of just innovative learning, or did you have one particular area of your uh, the of your education that really stands out to you the most and totally compliments you as a filmmaker?
I think like you said, I think you said it best and hit it on the head. Is that it was all kind of like a big milkshake, blended together. Everything. I mean, I remember, a lot of kids and even myself, where we used to sometimes think in high school, going through certain classes, like, okay, I don't know why I'm learning this. I don't think I'll ever use it in life.
Right.
But it's not true. Everything, especially in the field we're in filmmaking, every knowledge we pick up and everything we learn can be a tool in the work that we do. And I've always kind of seen it that way. And it helped me, even like doing the speaking. It's part of the mass communication knowledge that has, and the skills that have to go into being a
Right.
director. Like, when I was growing up, I was more of an introvert. And
Mm-hmm.
then as I was growing and doing more work in the business and growing in the business, from being an actor to modeling to directing and producing, I became more and more extroverted. And because communication is the key in what we
Right.
do, and everything comes in play, even like, you know, math. Geometry comes into play when you're directing and you're trying to light for a scene, and and all kinds of calculations that are involved with math problems in what we do, and the science of it, where even setting up shots and doing action designs and certain blockings and certain technical aspects of what we do involves a lot of science and engineering.
Exactly.
I mean, these are things that most people don't think about of what we do. We're not just storytellers and creative people artistically. With making a movie, it kind of blends everything together. You have to have, the more knowledge you have, the more tools you have at your disposal to be a better storyteller, better filmmaker.
Exactly. So, and since you were a young lad and you were filming on the various early days of home videotape and video cameras, did you always kind of see yourself in just particularly the cinematographer or director session, or did you just anything? Just you wanted to do any kind of film crew gig as long as you got to be part of the experience?
I did what I had to get it done, and that's always kind of been my mantra. Is like, okay,
Oh man.
I'd love to work with a team, but at the end of the day, whatever I have to do from my end to get it done, get us to the finish line, I'll do it. It's all at the end of the day a matter of what you capture within the frames. Anything behind the scenes, nobody's gonna know or even think about. It doesn't matter if I have to go hold the boom myself. The
Right.
audience will never know that. They're only gonna see what I'm capturing. If my sound is good, then it's good. If I have to go and frame the camera myself, then okay, I get what I want. I get the frame, and it's just about what you envision and how you can capture that, and whatever you need to do that, you do it. And I shoot to edit because I've also had experience editing, being an
Yeah.
editor, being a cinematographer, so I know what shots an editor will look for, and then I know what shots as a cinematographer you need to capture for coverage and even framing to know, okay, in post, what can we do with it and alter it, or how we can use one shot as two, by altering it, and what options we might have. So all these things are tools for me, and sometimes it's I have to get my hands dirty and just step in and go capture something. If we're shooting something with two different units on some of the bigger movies I'm doing now, we have multiple cameras, multiple units. Sometimes I'll have to grab a camera and frame something just to get a different coverage and
Hmm.
setup.
Right. Um, and and so going into that, uh, how did a lot of your gigs come about? I had definitely heard of your movie. Yeah, I had seen your movie Astro, and it seemed like that didn't do too well with the market, but I thought it was rather entertaining. Outer Limits kind of sci-fi, and
Yeah, and that was kind of the goal. I didn't really with that one. It wasn't really for the business side of it. I wanted to kind of tell a story. And for me, it felt like, okay, it just has to be told. I knew I didn't have the technology and resources to compete with like a big studio sci-fi movie like Star Wars, and my goal
mhm.
wasn't to do that. It was to at least tell the story, get it made. And at the time, I just had to work with the resources I had and the people you have, and you're only as good as the team you work with, in my opinion. And that film, there was a lot of experimental work on it, and a lot of different teams coming together. So for me, I'm still proud of getting it done because there were more challenges getting that movie made than probably any of my other films in my career. But it was a good stepping stone. Also, it's been, I believe, what, like 4 years now since we shot
Yeah,
it, and I've made many more movies since then, and it's actually helped me. And even before that, I thought I had movies that, wow, I've learned the most from. I did at least 4 or 5 other movies before Astro, where I was like, wow, the knowledge I got from this film is like amazing. If I can do this, I can do anything. So I've learned to accept that as like a good thing and a challenge for me. So that's why I always try to find more and more challenging projects that I haven't done before, so I can
right.
always kind of say, okay, I've never done that before, but you know what, I won't do it unless I try. And when I try, I push myself to raise the bar and be better. And it obviously creates more challenges, but if I can overcome those, then I feel like, okay, I can do anything. So that's how I've progressed, and it's helped me progress. And Astro was a huge, it was a very ambitious project to begin with, and it took me probably one of the longest times to get a film made, and it was one of the most challenging. So to be able to overcome that, I'm proud of that. And again, it's got mixed, you know, a lot of mixed audience reviews to where a part of the world loves it, another part of the world can't really understand it. But that's with any film where, um, some audiences, like with comedies, a comedy that plays well here in the States may not play well in England, or the UK or other parts of the world where they have different comedy sense. Same thing with even sci-fi. Horror is something more universal. Action, depending on the story, it can be universal. But sci-fi is another tricky subject where, it can be universal depending on what the story is, but and other times, like, it's something that's a hit or miss with different territories, on understanding and thinking kind of more broadly. But for me, it was kind of more directed towards a lot of the UFO believers and community that can see a lot of things in the way I weave the story together, where they watch it and they're like, wow, that's something I believe, or that's something, it's not too far from the truth, from what, they believe in. And to me, I wanted to blend again sci-fi, action, drama, kind of different elements in one, to kind of do something different. And not everyone was gonna, accept it or see it the way I did. And I knew that going into it.
Right. And I've seen you work just consistently with a lot of these various stunt people, like Spice Williams Crosby and Gary Daniels. And do you feel like a lot of these give it that they're all because they're dedicated to being a reasonable actor, as well as doing some stunts and even being very invested in the storytelling side of it all?
Yeah, they're definitely very open-minded and versatile in what they do as well, and we're all kind of similar, so we kind of think on the same page, and we're all good friends. Another stunt coordinator, second unit director I've been working with a lot is Philip Tan, and we're all kind of in the same circle, and Phil and we get along very well because he thinks like a director as well. And
we'll return after these messages.
Hey, feeling down? Feeling low? Not enough podcasts about movies in your life? Why not try
They must be destroyed on sight.
the new Podcast Cure-All, sure to get you right with the world and on a path to better living. We have exploitation, we have Italian horror, we have zombies, we have slashers, we have crime films, we have spaghetti westerns, we even have sci-fi and sex comedies. So take a dose of
They must be destroyed on sight.
as needed, and let the hosts, Lee Russell, Daniel Harper, Paul Romali, and the odd guest host cure what ails you.
Warning, may cause atrophy, African consumption, black fever, bone shave, chin cough, colic, cramp colic, dropsy of the brain, elephantitis, grocer's itch, jaundice, mania, miasma, mortification, palsy, Pott's disease, rheumatism, scurvy, St. Anthony's fire, summer complaint, and worm fit in some people. Consult a physician before listening.
Hey, I heard you like movies.
I heard you like to hustle.
I heard you like podcasts.
Well, guess what?
There's a podcast for you out there called The Home Video Hustle.
Damn right.
Every Friday, we talk about whatever movie PJ picks out the bag. What does that mean? Every Wednesday on our YouTube page, I put a bunch of movies in a bag, and PJ picks one out at random. And then we just watch it. We talk about it for maybe like an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours, whatever we feel like doing, wherever the conversation leads us.
But do we actually talk about the movie?
Most of the time. Tangents galore.
Yes.
So believe me, we may be a movie podcast, but it's not always about movies. We may talk about video games, music. Yeah, that's the big one, music. Sometimes we might get a little bit of politicalness in there.
Yes.
Sometimes we may just, we know what we like to do. We like to tell stories, PJ.
Yes.
I am the master storyteller
Yes.
of the podcast realm. Undefeated. So if you like to hear about movies, video games, whatever foolishness comes to our mind, the most random stuff you could think of, check out the Home Video Hustle. You can find us on the Stitchers,
Yes.
the Google Play,
Yes.
Apple Podcasts,
What else?
Podbean,
What else?
Podcast Addict,
Goddamn.
all that. Ain't no reason you can't get your hustle on. We everywhere, worldwide, baby.
Hustle, motherfucking hustle.
Hey, we can't cuss in the promo, PJ. We
Ah.
gotta be family friendly. There may be podcasts out there that don't want us here to say
Ah.
all that good fun stuff.
Well. you.
Don't run the listeners away, Pete.
I'm sorry.
But this is going kind of long.
Yes.
So we'll end this and say, hey, check out the Home Video Hustle every Friday on all the various podcast outlets. Peace.
Peace.
As far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be a gangster. And while Witch didn't make it to the top of the world, he did make the Gangs of Hollywood podcast. So join the gang and enjoy a movie review podcast about movie gangs, gangsters, mobsters, and the mayhem they cause. You can find GOH Podcast on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at GOH Pod at www.gohpod.com, as well as your favorite podcast listening app. And remember, say hello to your little friend for me.
If you take two old punk rockers who are past their prime, put them in front of a movie screen, and give them a podcast, what do you get? Cinema Punks. Cinepunks. It's the mixtape of movies.
Did you ever see a film at such a young age it left you traumatized with cinematic wounds? Necrophilia. It's a dead issue, man. Don't push it. Cinema Psyops is a weekly podcast documenting an ongoing experiment on the mind of an unwilling test subject.
No one should have to watch this movie.
Oh, no one should have to watch this?
No one should have to watch this movie.
Surprisingly, it's not a topic that a lot of people really want to tackle.
I'm shocked, prudes.
I know, really.
Right?
It's the next sexual frontier that no one wants to explore.
I am, in the most sincerest of senses, disappointed in you.
It takes a powerful goddess like Connie, jam her arm down the monster's throat and kill it. Oh, I'm still tripping out over that. Even as a kid, I was like, I gotta find a girl like that. Every week, I get a new look of disappointment that I never thought I could get out of her.
Unimaginable. At 12 years old, you should not be watching this movie.
Obviously.
At 13, you should not be. 14, you shouldn't be. I'm not entirely sure even 17-year-olds should be watching this.
Just because you're offended by something doesn't mean that you have the right to demand that it doesn't exist. Watching this film again, I had all of this like little nerd glee with everything that kept
little
popping
history
up.
doll popping up
absolutely.
at you.
So I totally loved this film.
Hey, I know why you couldn't see that. It's because your brain's warped from watching this shit at 12 years old.
Yeah, this is a rough movie. I told you ahead of time when we were getting ready to do it that it was going
How
to be a
did you
rough
watch
one.
this shit at 12?
Because physical wounds heal, cinematic ones don't. Listen to Cinema Psyops.
Hey everybody, I'm Corey.
And I'm Zach, and we're the hosts of Podcasting After Dark, a cast dedicated to late-night horror and sci-fi of the 80s and 90s, often found on HBO and Cinemax.
You know, the movies your parents didn't want you watching as a kid. You can find us every other week on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podbean, and Stitcher.
This is what you want.
This is what you get.
It's time, let's check our queue, baby. Pair it with a couple brews, baby. We love good movies. We love the bad ones too. So we watch them all and pass their lessons on to you. Oh yeah. Everything I learned from movies helps to make life a little bit groovy. Whether one last plot holes or gratuitous movies, it's time to get busy with your friend Steve and Izzy at eilfm.podbean.com.
Welcome to Who Was She podcast. I am your host, Tara Jabari. After a decade working in documentaries, marketing, and all things digital media, I found that podcasting is a strong medium to share stories. After years of producing for others, I decided to start my own biographical podcast. Who Was She will focus on the life of a woman throughout Baha'i history. The first season is about Lydia Zemenov. Lydia's story explores the subjects of the power of language and faith. Her father invented the universal language Esperanto, and she came from a Jewish family and became a Baha'i. She grew up during World War I and was killed during World War II in a concentration camp, despite heroic efforts to save her life. How can one person's life intersect with so many others, connect across borders, and inspire a biography which inspired this podcast? Over the next few weeks, I will share her story with you and the lives that were most affected by her and those who affected her life as well. They include her father, Lydia Zemenov, her spiritual mother, American journalist Martha Root, and the Baha'i German soldier Fritz Mako, who worked for the resistance undercover while having to serve the Nazi Party. I want to thank the author Wendy Heller and George Ronald Publishing for their blessing to let me use Heller's biography, Lydia, The Life of Lydia Zemenov, Daughter of Esperanto, as a main and instrumental resource for this podcast. So please subscribe and learn about this amazing woman who traveled through 3 continents in an effort to bring unity through the power of language. You can also find more information on our Instagram, Facebook, and Pinterest at Who Was She Podcast. Music was composed and performed by Sam Red. I am your host, Tara Jabari. Join us next time as we begin our journey about Lydia Zemenov.
Hi, everybody. It's Mac Jackson. I wanted to invite you to a new site called the Forever Adventure Network. This website has everything: pictures, videos, blogs. There's original music by Harmony Constant, 2 podcasts. One is the MacGyver podcast, where we celebrate Richard Dean Anderson, his iconic roles, and how it's influenced our lives. There's episode discussions, interviews, and life conversations. The second podcast is the Never Gets Old podcast, where we celebrate all the best things that we love in life, from TV, movies, music, and comics. The site is also the home for the MacGyver SG-1 audio series, an ongoing adventure series that continues the adventures of MacGyver and SG-1. There are also multiple stores to choose from for all of your pop culture and adventure needs. Come on by and check us out today. And thanks for joining the adventure.
Are you sick of the same old stale podcasts? Well, then join Vanessa and Darren as they dissect movies of all kinds. The 2 lifelong cinema lovers bring their favorites, curiosities, and first-time watches to the operating table and inject them with a healthy dose of snark. Then there's the waiting room, where they examine books and short stories. So just look for them on Apple Podcasts and where fine podcasts are available. They're part of the Legion Podcast Network. Follow them on Twitter at VDClinicPod. Join them on Facebook at facebook.com/groups/VDClinicPod. Or email them at vdclinicpod@gmail.com. They're ready to cure what ails you. And still, they just might be a little contagious.
We now continue with our program.
And we both, we just did the Commando, where I was running first unit, and most of the time he was running second unit, and we were switching, and we could shoot the same style. We understand each other. We speak the same language, and it made it a great production flow. and we have a unique relationship, just like with any other, filmmakers and their crew. Once you know, after making a certain amount of films and being in it for a certain amount of years, you kind of find the people you can gel with on that kind of a level to make the workflow easier and better for everybody. So I've been blessed to be able to kind of find those people and have that team again with that option A, B, and C team, where certain projects require a different team, and another
Right.
project, but whichever project you're doing, the team you're going to be able to call and rely on. And that goes across the board for actors, crew from all over, stunt coordinators, fight coordinators, DPs, everyone. And I like that too. That I'm able to do different kinds of films because
Yeah.
I also have different teams like that, and I'm doing action movies, horror movies, kids movies, Christmas movies, comedies, everything, and I love it, and that's what I've always kind of wanted to do. I never wanted to be boxed in to as just a horror filmmaker or just an action filmmaker. I just want to be a filmmaker and tell
Mhm.
stories that I want to, and it also keeps us fresh, being able to do different types of projects, throughout the year.
Right. And I saw that the documentary Top Priority, The Terror Within, which I had seen mentioned before because I had followed some of those stunt people who were, some of them were even former like Department of Homeland Security people.
Oh yeah, that was
And
a long time ago. Yeah.
right, but I remember it being only available to buy like through one particular site, but it seemed like basically that's kind of helped you out a lot because it was just helping you organize your vision and your narrative along with
Yeah,
just a
no,
general.
it definitely. Again, it goes back to another challenging project that I was able to overcome, and then it certainly opened a lot of doors for me at that time. I was very young, that we started that project back in, I think, like 2009, early 2009, and then it took me like 3-4 years. I was part of it because it was like a continuously growing case at the time, and it went far. I mean, it was being considered to be nominated for an Academy Award. We went through the whole process. We had our premiere at the Academy in Beverly Hills there, and then it had a small theatrical run, East Coast and West Coast. And so it opened a lot of doors, but at the same time, it was a whole different ball game. And I'm proud to be able to do that as well because I've always been fascinated with documentaries, especially political and social documentaries that are very challenging, and you have to be very precise and get it right. You're telling a real life story, and it can come with many consequences and backlashes. And for me, growing up, I've watched a lot of these documentaries, and even today, I'm fascinated with documentaries. I love them, but I always told myself that I couldn't do it, because it was so hard, so challenging. I couldn't wrap my head around it. But then once I did it, again, it was one of those things where I've overcome something I never thought I'd be able to do. So that made me a better person, better filmmaker, and better at what I do. And then it also, definitely paved ways for me to be where I am today. And when I even did that, for example, my commencement speech in high school. Yeah, that was like 15, 16 years ago. We, I'm sorry, it was like 14 years ago. But at that time, I didn't even know I would be able to do that. I remember the previous year, when I was a junior, the senior that year that was doing the commencement speech, I was videotaping that person because I was on the camera crew for taping the graduation ceremony in my junior year for the
Oh
seniors
wow.
that year. And I remember I was on the camera, on one of the cameras, and filming that speech. And to myself, I was like, wow, that's so hard. This person's speaking in front of 2,000 plus people. in this auditorium with, representing the entire high school class. I mean, they were prepping. A lot of these kids prep for 3-4 years ever since they become a freshman or even from junior high to be able to do this, And then a year later, fast forward to where, one day one of my friends just suggested to me, said, "Hey, you should go audition," because they had auditions for the speaker. And I said, "Okay, I never thought about it, but what makes you, tell me to go audition?" And she was like, "Well, you're a very good communicator. You can speak well, and you're inspiring with what you're doing." Because at that time, I was already, making my own content and kind of in the business. And so I said, "Sure. Well, I never thought about it, but I'll give it a try." So then, like the day before the audition, I just kind of slapped something together. I had a friend who was, David Benkowski, who I'm still very good friends with. He gave me some pointers because he was also the mayor of Seven Hills, near the city I grew up in. And
Oh,
so
wow.
he was a great public speaker, and he was actually the youngest mayor, one of the youngest mayors in Ohio. He was still like in his early 30s. Yeah, he was like a bit older brother to me. So he gave me some pointers, like, okay, this is how you have to be as a speaker, and da da da. And so I threw something together, and I just went and did the audition. And with my name starting with an A, I was the first one up in the audition out of like 90 people trying out. I go up and I just do the speech, and then I left. I didn't wait to hear everyone else's because there's like 90 other people. So I left, and then about another like 2 hours later, one of the friends that were in there came up to me and said, "Hey, congratulations." And I'm like, "For what?" And they're like, "Well, you're the speaker." I'm like, "Wait, come again? Are you serious?" And I couldn't even believe it, but
Right.
I ended up doing it. And, that's, again, I look back and I'm like, wow, a year before that, exactly a year before, I was telling myself, well, I can't ever do that. That's awesome that this person can do it. That's beyond me, and so that's how I felt when I did Top Priority. I just years before that, I was, watching a Michael Moore film, and I was telling myself, like, wow, that's so informative, so many documents, so much information. I don't think I could even do that. I just want to make entertaining movies. I want to make action movies. I want to make, fun movies. I don't want to go and do all this work to put a documentary together. And I would tell myself that. And then I did it, and I was like, wow, and then the New York Times, LA Times, Variety, they were comparing me to like Michael Moore and the next Michael Moore. And I was like, wait a minute, no, I don't want to be the next Michael Moore. I don't even want to be a documentary filmmaker. I want to
Right.
be just a filmmaker. And so I had to kind of let go of that and move on to, making other movies, so I didn't get boxed in to as just a documentary filmmaker, because it's kind of a double-edged sword with the kind of doors that opened for me. Every studio door opened for me at that time, and the movie was in the run for an Academy Award nomination, and it was an exciting time. But at the same time, it was opening doors for me to be a documentary filmmaker, and I didn't want to sidestep a bit. But at the end of it all, it was all beneficial.
Right. And I think it's benefited you from, I mean, since you got the communication degrees and other various supporting people, you've been able to assemble a crew. Have you, keeping it positive here, have you been able to essentially just avoid any, every filmmaker has melodrama and set. Have you for the most part been able to just avoid just any, mutinies on set, filmmakers, crew members not doing what they're supposed to, actors being prima donnas? Have you been able to pretty much avoid all that from the ground up?
I don't think you can avoid all of that in this business. Unfortunately, just because there's so many different personalities and characters that come together to, work together, like on a movie. Just on the last movie, Commando, we had like 75 plus people on a daily basis. Sometimes I've had movies where we'd had over 100 people. I've had movies where you only have 20 people. And
You're right.
the less people you have, the more easier it is to manage, of course. But the more people you have, you're bound to at least have one or two bad apples that have to get kind of corrected or taken care of to be able to
Right.
keep the whole team together. And
It's
it's just
never
like
affected your investors or anything, has it? Where you're just like, hey, I got this key crew member, but he's refusing everything I'm asking him to do, but we
No,
can't.
because at the end you have to be able to again work around it and adapt, and it's part of again the option A, B, and C. We always have to kind of, and I've learned over the years to be able to always, um, pre-plan these kinds of solutions of okay, option A, B, and C. You have to always have, um, ideas of something going wrong in your head.
Mhm.
Because that's just part of what we do. We're problem solvers. You have to always have solutions to any problems you have on set to be able to move forward, not stop. Like even the weather. Sometimes you can't control the weather, and like we
Yeah.
were in New Mexico shooting in October, early October in New Mexico, and one day it starts snowing, and we're told it's never snowed in October like the way it snowed. We had
Right.
over a foot of snow, and we had outdoor locations, and we didn't stop. We just had to kind of maneuver and rework and be creative, and instead of doing it outside, I had to change up the scene, make it inside, and make it work with the story. Um, just we make it work. If I had to let go of the sound guys because they made a big mistake and didn't record one of the scenes, we did, and then we went and
Moved
shot
on.
MOS sounds while the new sound guys came, within a couple hours. So there's always incidents like that, but you have to be able to be able to move forward with another plan to where you're not halting production.
Right.
We've had incidents where transpo guys, like even on Astro, a transpo guy locked the keys in the RV, in the makeup trailers and the RV in one of the trucks, and for
Mm.
4 hours we had to wait for them, a locksmith, to come, and none of our actors could get makeup. The whole production was on hold. It was like a domino effect. So now, instead of having 6 hours to shoot the scene I was supposed to, I had 2 hours to shoot it. But
Mm.
I had to adapt to that and be able to shoot it out in 2 hours, but still be able to keep the schedule to on the next location move. I was still able to go there on time. So there's always incidents that are going to happen every day. On the same show, one of the days, the grip, an electric truck, got in an accident on the way to
Oh God.
set. There goes 4 hours there. So there's always something.
Shish. I guess you could say your time management and communication definitely complements the unit production manager and assistant directing portion of your career. I've seen definitely a lot of movies in that category where you worked with the likes of Dolph Lundgren and Giorgio Serafino and Olivia Gruner. These movies include Puncture Wounds, Larceny, Assassin X, and the most recent Escape Room. So,
Yeah, it's always good to be able to collaborate with other directors and other teams outside of your own to be able to kind of pick up again on things that work, things that don't, and you have to be able to kind of learn from every experience to be a better director yourself and know kind of everyone's jobs and how they do it. And those movies, actually, when I did Puncture Wounds, that was back in 2013. I shot it. Now I'm directing with that team. Well, not now, but a couple of years after that, I started to, and I like their style, and for the way we have to make movies. We all connected, so you can't just try to follow one path. I've learned in this business, you have to have multiple paths set up and multiple teams, multiple avenues of work, and kind of go with the flow and go with the timing of what works when. And there's always going to be uncertain times like we had this year with 2020 being having COVID and shutdowns. You have to make the best of it, and I actually made some of the most films this year than I have in, a couple of my
Damn.
other years throughout my career, and people wouldn't think of it. I mean, even I was able to make, let's put it this way, this year in 2020, I was able to get films done faster, meaning greenlit, and from concept to completion the fastest in record times. It's just because of the circumstances, and everyone has to adapt to be able to accelerate things and be able to manage time more efficiently, because time became a commodity of every day that you shoot now becomes a risk of getting shut down for possible COVID or whatever, and we're, as filmmakers, no matter how experienced and new or old you are in this business, we're all adapting and learning at the same time with these
Right.
times. So it's good to be able to kind of have that experience, knowing where you can go. And so right now, I'm comfortable in directing and producing, and I'm looking forward to the lineup that I've set up. I have a slate of at least 6 films now for the next
Sweet.
2 years that's already set.
Very
So I know
cool.
my path going forward for the next couple years at least.
That's great. And I had been fortunate enough to actually see your movie Executive Protection. It was just on one of those, third-party streaming sites, and I was like, wow, did this, this never got a U.S. or even UK release?
It was actually a movie I produced, and Olivier Gruner was the director on it, and that was actually one of the fastest productions we did. We finished that movie in, I believe, like 7 days of shooting in Southern California. We shot it in LA and San Diego, and it was a very quick production. I mean, I think we shot the climax there on the plane. It was like 24 pages in 8 hours that day. It was
Damn.
crazy, but it was fun. It was actually a pretty fun shoot, and we had great guys on it. But yeah, I don't think they sold the domestic rights from what I know. They only had international sales and stuff on it.
What a bummer, because it.
But Olivier, I think because he's been trying to get a TV series made off of it, and I don't know what he kind of handled the whole distribution side on it. So I'm not sure if it still is on hold with US or if it got released. But actually, that's a good point. I may want to look into that or talk to him about it, because you're right. I mean, it's a shame because it was a pretty cool film for what we did.
Yeah, and once again, it's one of 2 other movies that you did with Sasha Mitchell, and Eric Roberts is also in there briefly.
Sasha Mitchell, he was a cool guy, and I was fortunate able to work with him on a couple different projects. I believe like 3 or 4 projects we did, and he was someone that I grew up watching on Step by Step, and even,
Right.
Kickboxer, the later series, he was the main lead, and I would watch, and he was one of the guys that I was a fan of, and I never thought I'd be able to work with him because he kind of disappeared, for
Right.
a long time, and randomly, it's like I did this movie called The Chemist, where I was a UPM line producer in. And all of a sudden, one day, I find out Sasha Mitchell is back in acting now. He's gonna come on and do a day. And I was like, oh wow, that's cool. And we had Marty Cove on that, and Richard Grieco, Sasha Mitchell. So there's a lot of old school people, we grew up with, and so that was pretty cool. And that was in, I think, 2014. We did The Chemist. It actually became that's Assassin X, which was called The Chemist, and then when it got released,
That's right.
changed the title to Assassin X, and that team is what one of the producers from El Bravo from that movie was my partner in the Commando, and we just recently produced that. So again, comes full circle with a lot of the same team players.
For sure. And Smoke-Filled Lungs, I would commonly see listed on various, Amazon Primes, pay to buy or rent, streaming places. And you got to work with The Wired's Frankie Faison.
Oh yes, yeah, and Orlando Brown was in it. So that was another film we did in like under 10 days, and
Man.
it was more of like a festival piece and drama, and
Yeah, I saw there's like 3 different festival award accolades on the poster. So
yeah, and it was a good script. Again, it paid a lot of attention to challenges and issues that veterans have to deal with PTSD and pharmaceutical drugs, and it was a very heavy family drama. And Frankie was actually, he was great to work with. He wasn't actually our first choice. We were actually in talks with Danny Glover and some other
nice.
actors, but because of timing and scheduling purposes, we had to recast, and we ended up with Frankie, which was great. I don't think anyone could have done it better. He just brought it. I mean, we only, believe it or not, in the movie, he's in quite a bit, a few different scenes with some, good monologues, but we only shot him one day, and because at the time he was shooting the TV series Banshee, that was going on regularly in Philadelphia, and Frankie's from New York, and we were shooting the movie in LA, and he didn't have a schedule open because Monday through Friday he's shooting for Banshee in Philadelphia. So we had to then, bring him out from Banshee on a weekend. On Saturday, he came in the morning. He shot with us, and then Sunday he had to fly back to start work on Monday on Banshee again. So it was rushed, but it was great working with him. Orlando Brown, he was kind of going through a weird phase at that time, and that was the movie he kind of lost it on the last day. Again, it was another issue where we couldn't have him for the last scene, because he had something come up, and so from after that, he kind of, went into his crazy phase, and, all that stuff happened with him getting arrested and everything the year later. But I think he's doing better now. I haven't talked to him in a few years, but, he was interesting to work with.
Being a Disney kid is pretty rough.
Yeah. I mean, he's not a bad guy. He's a good guy. He's, he has a good heart and had a lot of potential and still does. He's talented, but I just think, he's had some issues he had to deal with in his life, and I wish him the best. I think he's doing better now, than before. So good luck to him.
For sure. And just as another thing, you have a horror anthology that came out, Morbid Stories. Did that come out on like the internet, or is it still?
Yeah, it had a small run last year in Halloween, and it was on Amazon Prime and DVDs, and we recently actually had to pull it, and which I'm okay with. It was just another project we did for fun. It didn't really it wasn't really taken that seriously when we kind of put it together. We took a few different short films that some some of our friends put together, or people that wanted their short films to have a life somewhere in distribution or part of something. So we decided, okay, let's combine all these together, have a wraparound story, and release something for the Halloween. So it was last Halloween we released it. It got some reviews, mixed reviews, and we played around with it a little bit, and then we figured, what, it's better just to kind of keep it in pieces and give it just that short life that it had. And there are some DVDs flying around. It'll be one of those things later on in our lives, like maybe there's only a couple hundred copies out, and that becomes a little cult or whatever, one of our earlier films. But we just kind of wanted to keep it something more for fun, rather than business.
Right. So as a whole, so is the Commando mostly a wrap, or is it still kind of post-production?
Well, it's in post. It's pretty much almost there. The production itself is wrapped. We're not shooting anymore. That's complete. So it's all just in the final editing stages and post.
Gotcha. Very cool. And given how you've been able to take this time and just keep growing and keep getting stuff booked and ready to go, which of your productions do you think you're looking forward to the most?
I won't lie. The most exciting one I have coming up is MR9. It's one more film away, which we're hoping, if everything opens up and is clean and cleared, to shoot in the spring, around March of 2021. And it's an action spy thriller film, based on a top-selling international novel series, the Masood Rana novel series out of South Asia, in Bangladesh. It's been around since 1964. Since then, they've had over 500 books published in the series. So it's a kind of a big project. And right now, we have most of the cast in place and everything. We were supposed to be shooting it earlier this year, but with COVID hitting, we're shooting in 3 different countries. So it's a big challenge to be able to maneuver around and coordinate through, all these different actors and schedules and crew and locations to be able to make it work without knowing that it's going to be safe. So it got pushed, and since then I made 2 more movies since it got pushed this year. So I have one more I'm shooting in January, which is another kids' Christmas movie. It's a Snow White, and so that's gonna be fun. That's gonna be a fun one. But right after that, is MR9, which is more of my baby, and I adapted the screenplay from the original book with 2 other writers, and I've been working on it actually for almost 2 years now on the development side of it. And so, I've been itching to get that one shot. So I'm looking forward to that one probably the most.
Very cool. So as a whole, do you really just find that this is gonna keep getting better and just can't go wrong from this point on? You've done enough experimentation, you've done enough just kind of seeing what does and doesn't work, testing the markets, and you feel confident with your other producing partners?
I can't say that nothing can go wrong. There's always got to be, again, part of me is like having that plan A, B, and C of if anything goes wrong, okay, what's plan B, what's plan C, and having a solution. But I do feel like I'm more in a comfortable stage in my career to be able to pick and choose of what I want to do, and what projects I want to do, and who I want to work with. So that is a little different.
It definitely can't get worse.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you're right. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Is it definitely can't get worse, and if it does, then at least I've been through the worst to know how to keep going. So I'm not scared anymore, and it's that's probably the biggest difference. Is now I'm more confident in myself as a filmmaker. I'm not scared to make mistakes. I'm not scared to just work with whoever, but I know how to be safer than before. It's just that I know who I want to work with and what I want to do, and that's what I would like to keep doing.
Right. Okay. Oh, sweet. So now that you've promoted basically everything that you got coming up forward, I guess when should we keep an eye out for the Commando? I know this is tough to say because schedules are changing
Commando,
and the market.
yeah, Commando is right now. It's the fall of 2021, and then right around this time or before Christmas next year, I have another movie coming out, Ace and the Christmas Miracle, which I shot earlier this year. It's a kids' Christmas movie about a talking horse, and Jon Lovitz is the voice of the talking horse. So that was a really fun
nice
movie. We shot that during the pandemic this year, and so that one's going to be getting released right around the same time or right after Commando of 2021. And then I'm doing this other one coming up soon, another Christmas movie, which is supposed to be releasing this Christmas again, or not this, the next, 2021 Christmas. So I should have about 3 films releasing around mid to end of 2021.
Sweet. So you'll be able to just essentially, just have 3 different things in the market ready to see which one takes off and which one.
Yeah, and then there's always, projects on the sideline that I'm producing. So, it's like every other month or every month I have, some project I'm associated with, coming out. So it's exciting to see how every one of them, kind of, how they progress into being what they are and how they're accepted in the audience and the kind of distribution they get, because they're all different and every film is different, and every production is it's a different experience. So the whole thing is exciting.
Very neat. Thank you ever so much for making time for this interview. It was a delight just catching up and just seeing. This is like the first filmmaker I've had on here who's really tried to, go above and beyond and keep being unpredictable, keep testing out what they want to do versus what the market's currently at versus just any other kind of audience expectation. So this has been very eye-opening.
Oh, it's been my pleasure. Thank you, Cam. And, it was fun. And, anytime, if you want me on in the future, just let me know. We'll set it up.
Any of these movies you want to promote, I'd love to have you back. If you even want to get involved in some of the indie film chats that I have with some other indie filmmakers, I'd love to have you for those as well. So,
Sure, that sounds fun. Yeah, keep me posted.
Yeah, you'll have it, and Godspeed to you.
All right, thank you. Many blessings, and you have a wonderful, holiday season, and stay safe.
Oh, yeah.
And a happy New Year.
By all means.
Follow us on the web on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. The podcast is available on Podbean, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Anchor, Apple, and anywhere else podcasts are available. Feel free to review our show and leave comments on any of those sites. Thanks a million for listening.
It's a jacked up